Writing my writing my James Grider book is bugging the shit out of me. I thought it would be short and sweet when I started. Instead, it wound up 234,000 words long. By comparison, the novel Brimstone is only 166,000 words. And as an audiobook, it's over 19 hours in length. I have an obsessive-compulsive disorder, where perhaps I explain everything in too much detail in my writing. Maybe I don't plan everything out as deeply as I should. But the problem is, I am working on it all alone. I don't know if I'm explaining something too much or not enough. How do I know? Just because the explanation seems good enough to me, is it good enough for someone else? Who do I bounce ideas off of? Who is going to proofread each chapter as I put it out and say, okay, you explain this too much, but you didn't clarify this enough. All I want is my James Grider books to be indistinguishable in quality from Special Agent Pendergast novels. Why is that so difficult? You pluck a James Grider book off a shelf, and you shouldn't be able to tell the fucking difference. That's what I want. So I need it at an average length of a novel that's not daunting to an average reader. I mean, look at Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child's acknowledgments page for Brimstone. Lincoln Child would like to thank Bruce Swanson, Mark Mindell, Pat Aloco, Chris and Susan Yango, Jerry and Terry Highland, Anthony Cifelli, MD, for their friendship and assistance. MD? What fucking medical doctor is going to assist me in writing a book? Not one. Then he lists a ton more family member names and thanks some FBI agent friend for advice on New York and New Jersey federal law enforcement matters, and some other guy for providing details about firearms. Then it gets even more egregious with Douglas Preston, who actually traveled to the places in Italy described in this book, thanking some guy for letting him observe a boar hunt at a Tuscan estate, people that helped him with regional dialects and understanding of Italian police forces, different families, the monks of some monastery, and again, all his family members, wife and children. Now what the fuck am I? I am a loser, relegated to sitting in a trailer, furnished like a solitary confinement cell for 22 hours a day. I don't have any life experiences, I don't travel anywhere. I pick my research off the internet with second-hand accounts and through some books that I pirate. I don't even have a research team. So all I want is to create a fucking novel that is easy to read, that matches in quality to what a pair of writers in their 60s with a shit ton of assistants have written together. I have to manage this single-handedly. And instead everything turns into a huge chunk of shit for me. It's overbearing. They write phrases in their books like, I can only hope you are less of a Philistine when it comes to art. Philistine? I wouldn't have thought to use that word in my writing. There are rich, snooty people in this novel that speak like it's the 19th century, with antiquated slang, even though this book is set in the present. So what I do is I read these books as I edit my own book, and if something like that jumps out at me, a phrase or a description that has a place in my novel where I could incorporate it, I then incorporate it into my writing. Like, I picked out the word Philistine and used it in my book. I use other writers' books like some kind of word, idiom, description, and phrase thesaurus. I couldn't even think to call a character a poisonous gossip, or to describe someone's sense of humor as trenchant, or that someone has been skewered by a critic. I can't even think to write a phrase like, he dusted his hands, which is when you rub your hands together, as if to dust them off. The amount of vocabulary I can call upon off the top of my head seems so limited that I have to peruse through professional novels and pick out idioms and words to use in place of the bland crap that I would normally use. Then I end up writing 15-year-old kids speaking with vocabularies of 25-year-old English majors. What's the logic here? And I fixate on this, but also I fixate on the incredible length. Why is everything I write so long? Is it because I touch upon tangential things in the story too much? Is it because I elaborate on too much detail? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do now? Spend 2 months abridging the book from 234,000 words to at least 166,000? To have it so it's at least no longer than brimstone? I am cursed into doing all of this alone. I want a product that matches the concerted effort of 2 writers and dozens of assistants, all made by me. It's all bugging the shit out of me. It's like I'm a fucking clown trying to write a book. When I first read through my novel after finishing it, I was actually laughing at the things James Grider thinks and does. Reading it through a second time, I was bored to death. Now I can't tell if my book will be funny, interesting, or a boring piece of shit, because I have now experienced feeling both ways about it. It turns into a fucking tedium. The quality of this book is meant to far exceed the quality of the other 2 shitty books I already put up. Someone should be able to put a false cover on my book, with Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child, or F. Paul Wilson, or Clive Cussler credited as the authors, and no one reading should be able to tell the difference. That's how good I have to be. Instead, everything feels like it turns to shit. Soon it will be 7 months since I've been working on this. I read through all the 1,100 pages once. It seemed okay. As I read through them a second time, I ended up adjusting and adjusting things that I didn't catch the first time. Some chapters are such a pain in the ass that seem like they need adjustments into perpetuity. I am sitting there, analyzing everything, scrutinizing every little thing, something I'd never do if I was reading for pleasure a book written by anyone else. I am not playing video games as much as I should because of this. I am not making videos as often as I should because of this. Where am I going to get a publisher to help me with this shit? What publishing company is going to take me on as a business partner when I have embarrassed myself with all my controversial philosophies publicly posted on YouTube? Who will publish a book that defends online piracy of other books, or defends mass murderers, or adult teachers having sex with school students. People, I hear, hate reading fictional novels that shove political views down their throats. But that's pretty much the whole crux of my James Grider novels. I am shoving my political views down the reader's throat. Political views that copyright laws are bad, or that Obama is a bad president. So much for reading this as an escape from reality, huh? Then James Grider at the end of the book casually refers to the black president as a nigger. So if you're a black guy who bought this book, maybe you like James Grider's character and agree with him, then you get to the end, and you have to hear him casually toss out the N-bomb, like he's been a racist all along. Isn't that nice? Also, I get graphic describing how James washes his ass in the sink after taking a shit and uses his hand to wipe it, and I literally use words ass and shit as the narrator. All the writers I look up to are men who have worked tough jobs, whether as doctors or museum curators or lawyers or whatever, demanding jobs that take up all sorts of time, and yet they had time to develop a writing skill far superior to my own. Here I sit on my ass with nothing to do but this, day after day, and I make a fucking hash out of it. I act like a parasite, perusing their finished works, sucking off their techniques and vocabulary knowledge. I have literally pilfered at least 2 of Douglas Preston's concepts and inserted them, or actually built a plot of my novel around them, practically taking word-for-word descriptions out of his book and pasting them into mine, because I'm such a bad writer. Oh, and when I say making a hash out of something, I grabbed that expression out of their book as well, even if they didn't create it either. These problems with my book bug the shit out of me. I refuse to play games as often as I should so I can get back to polishing off this turd. I hurry through my walks with my dog instead of enjoying them so I can get back to this fucking book. I don't put up videos every day because of this book. I was perusing one novel, and I found a line where an angry character is thinking, "Oh, I would like to do a tap dance on that fucker's head." I never would have thought of such a phrase myself, so I will incorporate it into my book, where James Grider is angry and he thinks about doing a tap dance on someone's head. See, then I'll sound like a fully legit professional writer after it's all finished.